Hello everybody and welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Alex and today we're going to be talking about the bar, the tavern, the inn. Anywhere that you likely started your campaign, but I'm going to bet you didn't utilize all of the things that likely go on in an inn or a bar. Sure, you might have got a drink and stayed the night, but most of the time there's things like card games or dice games going on in an inn. And there might even be somebody to bet on with, or even some sort of underground gambling ring that your party might be stuck up in. That's not to say you couldn't just break out the poker cards or craps whenever you wanted to. But in a fantastical world, it kind of feels a little bit lame to bring everything down to the ground floor. So what are some of the more fantastical ways that you could have your players getting challenged in a dice or card game? And that's what actually brings us here today. I've got a couple of ideas of how you can wrap in other games into your game to sometimes break up the monotony, but even have special little rewards to upgrade people's luck. Because most of the time, if you call for something like a fate roll or just a straight roll, then people can't really influence those because it's up to fate. It's up to the gods. But not this time. They're actually able to level up their fate or luck in a couple of different ways by competing in games of chance. And this could be a kind of cool way to introduce the fantastical versions of real life into your mystical world. So if I haven't exactly sold you on the concept yet, I've got a couple of great games that'll do that for me. First and foremost, we have the card game Here to Slay. This is a game that can be played with just about as many people as you have around the table, as long as everyone has a leader card. And for me, I actually bought the expansions, so it's a game for up to about 10 people now. But typically it's supposed to be played with 4. It's a relatively fast-paced game where you have a character who is also a bard or several other different classes. It could be really fun to hand your bard the bard card or your wizard or fighter, and even in a way represent your class in the type of card game play. The rules are super simple, and I'll give you a quick rundown. Honestly, I don't have to do much work to do this because they get you a handy card that has all of the actions that you're allowed to do, as well as a quick description of how you win and the classes that come with the base set. But first, let's go over how you play. I said there's 3 action points, and luckily, I also play a game that has an action point system. Speaking of action points, you might need something to keep track of them if you got other things to think of while you're being the DM. Then in that case, you've got to check out J15 Games on Etsy. They have an amazing action tracker that tracks your HP, your stamina, your mana, your rest. It's got 4 action points for DC 20 and even a minor action as well. And not only that, the fact that this Here to Slay also uses action points, there's these tiny action point trackers that can track your action points or even HP right here at the bottom. All of these are beautifully made, and I can't thank them enough for sending them our way. Now let's head back into the tavern. Let's go over how you play. I said there's 3 action points, and you can do simple things with 1 action point like draw a card, play a card, or play the effect of a card that's already on the field. When you play a card, something like a hero, you would be able to roll to see if you can activate its effect when it's played. Each different hero has a number to meet or even go under. This symbol here is 5+, and as long as you roll more than 5, the effect activates. Some of them have things like 7-, so you have to at least get under 7 for the effect to activate. Something else that you're able to do with your action points is attack a monster. And as we get to the monsters, this is actually the whole point of the game. You're supposed to slay 3 monsters, and once you have them in your loot pile of dead monsters, you win the game. As you can see, it would be a pretty fast-paced game, but the thing about monsters is they have certain requirements to be able to attack them. This monster here, you need 4 heroes to be able to attack this monster, as far as the requirements state. But for this one, you need to at least have 1 hero that's a bard and 1 other hero. So if you don't have a bard type hero, which in the massive amount of cards that's going to be handed out in the game, the bard's probably not too far behind. But the good thing is there's 3 monsters on the playing field at a time. So you don't just have to hit the one that has requirements for a hero that you don't have. You might just have to have a couple extra heroes to take down the one that doesn't have requirements for a specific one. And another cool thing that you can do with your 3 action points, if you're looking at your hand and you don't really have anything worth playing, you can use 3 action points to discard your entire hand and draw a new one. This game being an action point system appeals to me especially, because there's a whole lot of versatility that comes with your turn in this game. If you really wanted to, you could just draw 3 cards, or maybe you could play 3 heroes, or you already have 3 heroes on the battlefield, you could play 3 different hero effects. Now, if you were going to play a card and it calls for a roll, the thing is we have 2 d6s to play this game. I'm sure you probably have 2 d6s around the table, especially if this is in the middle of a D&D game. But luckily enough, they provide you with 2 really fancy dice. But luckily enough, we've been provided with 2 fancy dice in the starter kit. If a roll is called and you're supposed to roll, you'll roll 2 dice, most of the time shooting for an effect on a hero card. But for the other players, if a player is making an action, they have a chance to challenge it. There can only be 1 challenge per action, so you can't challenge it over and over again. But you guys have a roll off, and if you win, you stop their action and they lose that action point. However, there are several different modifiers in the game. You could have something that adds to a roll or something that takes away from a roll. Anyone can add a modifier at any time when a roll is called, so there could be several different modifiers being cast down at the same time, making it a pretty funny thing to see everyone pile up on one person to give them like a -8 for little to no reason. If we do play a hero card and it's on the field, there are several different ways that you could enhance your hero card. By applying an item that gives it a specific effect, you know, a magic item in D&D, a magic item in the game. But same thing in D&D, we also have cursed items. You're able to play these cursed items on an enemy's hero. And a hero can only have 1 item at a time, so you can't stack them up as much as you'd like in Magic the Gathering. The last type of card that we'll cover is a magic card, and it's basically just an instant effect that you're able to do something. And most of the time when playing a magic card, you don't have to call for a roll. It just happens, which is really awesome because it's 1 action point to play a magic card anyway. Once everybody knows how to play the game, these games can go by in about 5 to 10 minutes. Some of them could end up dragging on, but I really don't see a world where this goes past 15. That doesn't include while you're learning the game because that'll take a little bit longer. Otherwise, I'd say this is a great way to stay on brand and break into a card game in the middle of your game. Maybe even in this game, there could be a little bit of roleplay because the DM themselves would be able to play with you, and you could try to extract information out of who the DM is playing. This could be in an inn, a bar, a tavern, an underground gambling ring, and of course, the most thematically accurate, it could be at a casino. Either way, Here to Slay is a great way to thematically break out the cards and maybe even gain a couple of bonuses along the way. There's a lot of inspiration chances that the DM would probably be able to hand out if there's an espionage going on, if the players were trying to extract information out of the DM. But it would be really cool to add to your game, especially if whoever won this card game got a +1 to their next luck roll, or maybe a permanent +1 to any fate roll. Something like that would be really cool to incorporate into your games. Which brings us on to our next game. If you guys aren't really into card games and don't want to read out rules to everybody, I've got the booty dice. Booty dice are awesome. They're essentially just a dice game where you roll these 6 different dice here, and each one of the sides of the dice has a different effect. You can end up rolling 6 or 3 dice, depending on how many lives you have, that is. You don't have to use your lives to roll, but it is very likely that you might lose one of your lives. So it can be a strategy game choosing how many dice you want to roll, and you can even roll up to 3 times in your turn. to really move the game forward. This is an even faster paced game than what I was talking about with Here to Slay. This one will be 5 minutes once everyone knows the game, if you're lucky. It might even be quicker than that. And something I love about a game like this, there's only a 2-page pamphlet explaining everything you need to know about the game, so you can really just dive right into getting to know this game in an instant. Everybody starts with 5 gold and 10 lives. If you lose all 10 of your lives, you lose. And if you get 25 gold, you win. If you're the last pirate standing, then you're also the winner. And there's only one other token that we have to worry about, which is the shield token, which is simply an effect on the dice. If you want to know all of the different dice effects, they give everyone a little handout that explains all of these effects and even 3 different combos that you can perform. For instance, if you were going to roll the doubloon, you would get 2 gold. If you rolled X marks the spot, then you'd lose 2 gold. Goes back into the game's coffer. Rolling the Jolly Roger gets it so you can steal 2 doubloons from every character. And then we have the cutlass. Every time you roll this sword, you can use it to attack one of the players, removing one of their lives. Or a shield if they were lucky enough to roll the shield and take a shield from the war chest. And then last but not least, there's Walk the Plank. You lose 1 of your lives every time you roll one of these things, and it's devastating when you roll more than 1. But if you happen to roll 3 Walk the Planks, that activates a brand new ability called Mutiny, which all other pirates end up losing a life. There are 2 more combos that can happen. If you get 3 X's, that means it's a shipwreck. And that means every other pirate has to give 3 of their doubloons right back into the game's coffer. And if you happen to roll 1 of every single side of dice when you roll all 6 dice, you get the Davy Jones Locker, which makes everybody around the table, except for you, lose 2 lives, and you also make them lose 5 gold coins as well. So you can see how much of a fast-paced game this really could be. And I can't recommend something like this enough, especially if you're on somewhat of a piratey or seas-like adventure. This would be great to bust out the dice and win some booty. So that's what I got for you, everybody. What do you guys think about these 2 games that I just showed you today? They don't necessarily have to be played in the middle of a D&D game, and they're just fun to bust out if you want a fun 5 to 30 minutes, especially if someone wants a rematch. There are lots of really interesting ways that you could tie them into your D&D game, and a random way to try to influence your player's invisible luck stat, if you will. Especially if there's inherent benefits cooked into these games for your players, they're gonna want to play every time they hit a tavern. But what do you guys think, everybody? Let me know down below, and until next time, I'm Alex with Slow Your Roll, and we'll see you all later.